Thank you.
St. Clair?
Yes. Supervisor Alcorn. So again, we have Hunter Mill District Supervisor Alcorn is with us. Did you want to say anything before we get started?
Yeah, I just want to thank folks for being on the call today, and for taking this time to provide some feedback and input as we move forward with this process. I'm going to be listening in, but and available if anybody has any questions. But just wanted to thank you. This is something that we don't have a lot of experience in our comprehensive plan. So looking forward to you helping us figure this out. So thank you, St. Clair.
Thank you, Supervisor Alcorn. So again, as I said, I'm just going to give a brief overview of the Reston Comprehensive Plan process. So this is really it's the 2020 study because this was authorized back in January of 2020, and it was authorized to evaluate how new development might impact Reston residents, public facilities, and provide the opportunity to address any growth-related issues within Reston. And this was partly because, since the last Reston comprehensive plan update, which was in 2015, there had been several, over 30 rezonings approved since that time. And I guess many want to really evaluate the effects of the development on Reston residents and, like we said, public facilities. And again, this study provides an opportunity to address any growth-related issues. So just to give overview, the comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan is basically the primary resource of county staff, the Board of Supervisors, the Planning Commission, and other decision makers for evaluating land use applications and making policy decisions about the county's built and natural environments. The comprehensive plan describes a community's land use vision, the priorities and goals for that community. Ideally, it represents a full spectrum of a community, young and old, renters and homeowners, minority communities, and all income ranges. The comprehensive plan also sets forth, areas of the county that are recommended either for more development. There might be areas where it's recommending retention of existing uses and character, or recommending changes in land use. And usually provides land use recommendations in terms of land use, for example, mixed use, residential, non-residential, retail, and it also includes study, the Reston study. A task force was appointed back in March of 2020. A 31-member task force was appointed by Supervisor Alcorn, who also served as the chairperson for the task force. And as I mentioned, yes, the task force meetings were scheduled to kick off in March, and as we know, the global pandemic took over our world, so it was delayed. It didn't start till May. We had to scramble to figure out how to have the meetings in the, lockdown situation. So all of the meetings for the task force, through the task force phase, were all held virtually. The task force was comprised of Reston residents representing neighborhood and community organizations, landowners, and representatives from business associations. And this process was unique because the task force was given the pen, to draft the plan language. So the initial draft recommendations were task force recommendations. During the task force process, staff provided briefings on the comprehensive plan, topics, and provided resource support. The full task force, I think it was 58 public meetings we had of just the full task force between May 2020 and August of 2022. And the task force, formed several subcommittees for various chapters of the plan. And there were several, I've lost count of how many subcommittee meetings there were with the task force process. But eventually in August of 2022, but it was August 22nd of 2022, the task force endorsed their proposed comprehensive plan language. And then in September, the task force draft recommendations were made available to the public for review and comments. And staff has been conducting a review, evaluating the task force recommendations, and is developing a staff report, which would highlight, any areas where, staff may have different recommendations than the task force. So again, the study was authorized back in January of 2020, and the original scope identified a couple of areas or chapters of the plan to look at. And those are the planning principles, um, land use in the village centers, transportation, affordable housing, parks and open space, environments, and public facilities. So that was kind of the initial scope of the study. However, as the task force meetings were occurring and the task force was kind of highlighting some of the items they would like to address, there was some additional topics that were brought into the review process. So those topics were heritage resources, economic development, public arts. There was some limited number of specific land use recommendations within Reston, community health, and equity. So I'm just going to give a brief. There were a couple of areas where the task force proposed land use recommendation changes. One was Reston Town Center North. They recommended some changes in the amount of residential development and where residential development can occur within that area. There was also area we call like Samuel Morse Drive area, where they proposed adding an option for residential development up to 1.8 FAR. And then the Roland Clark Place residential mixed use station, section where they proposed allowing public uses to meet the requirement for non-residential development. Then community health. So community health is one where this is a proposed new chapter to the Reston Plan. The goal of the task force was to ensure that planning and development in Reston prioritizes achieving health equity. And the objectives for the health section are intended to benefit the health of everyone in Reston, regardless of race, income, age, immigration status, or any other measure. And the objectives are provided in 5 categories: healthcare and services, active living, food systems, climate health, green infrastructure and healthy buildings, and social cohesion. And then there was equity, which I know many here, that's the really topic they're focused on. So the task force again proposed this, which again would be a new chapter to the Reston Comprehensive Plan. It would be the first time there is an equity chapter anywhere in the Fairfax County Comprehensive Plan. And the goal of the task force in developing their recommendation was, again, to build on the concepts outlined in the One Fairfax Social and Racial Equity Policy, which was adopted by the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors back in November of 2017. The One Fairfax policy commits the Board of Supervisors to consider equity in decision-making and in the development and delivery of future policies, programs, and services. The proposed equity recommendations that were in the task force draft were drafted and intended to continue Reston's long-standing commitment to removing barriers that perpetuate injustice and unite Reston around a shared set of goals, and to use planning to build a more inclusive economy and connect people to opportunity. So like I said, that is what went into the draft that was developed by the task force. Kind of some highlights of the task force equity recommendations was to include public participation as the first planning principle. And they also worked with the overall task force to look at providing interwoven equity recommendation into other chapters of the plan, such as affordable housing, transportation, and parks and recreation. So like I said, that's when it went into the task force draft. Staff has been doing a review, excuse me, of all of the task force recommendations, including equity, again, to identify areas, where staff may have, different recommendations. And we do have staff that can, after this, kind of go into discussion on, how things have been proceeding at this point. But just to give an idea of where we are in the process, as I said, staff is evaluating the task force recommendations, developing a staff reports, which would include getting an evaluation of the recommendations, giving staff's analysis, and include a markup of the task force recommendations. The staff report is scheduled to be published in February. We do have a planning commission workshop that's coming up next week, Thursday. That's January 26th at 7:30 p.m., where staff will be giving an update to the planning commission on kind of the staff evaluation, where we are providing draft staff recommendations, and that is open to the public. And right now, tentatively, the planning commission public hearing is scheduled for March 30th, 2023. And we right now is looking for a Board of Supervisors public hearing in May. We haven't confirmed a specific date yet. It could be May 9th or May 23rd, but that's kind of where we are at this point. So that's just a brief overview. At this point, I will open up for discussion. Carla, is there anything you wanted to add or anything you had to say?
Sorry, I couldn't get myself off mute. No, I think you covered it well. Again, as we go through the rest of the process, I'm here to answer any questions that could come up.
Thank you, Carla. So I just wanted to open up to anybody. Is there any questions, concerns, anything you need additional feedback on? I also want to point out that we have one of the task force members, Alvarez, who is here. He was part of the task force. He was part of the equity group, so he's also here. Alvarez, did you want to add anything, give us perspective from the task force on the process?
Well, I think, can you hear me? Am I on? Okay.
We can hear you.
Okay. From being on the task force from the beginning, I think we divided it up into groups that dealt with each part of it. The groups that were assigned or volunteered for different areas, then kept the entire group apprised of what they were doing. And when they had a completed process, it was brought to the entire group, and the entire group voted to accept it or not accept it. And that ended up into the final plan. The equity part was something that I think most of us felt should be addressed. And as I recall, again, a small group or somebody developed it, and it was brought to the entire group. And I'm pretty sure we voted on it as we did all the others. And I was fully in support of all of the aspirational things that were in there. And I think it's something that has not been, as I understand, prior plans, but it was something that the majority, I think vast majority of the members on the board felt is something that we want to state what we would like to see happen. We want housing of all types throughout Reston, and we wanted people of all incomes and all different demographics to have every opportunity they could, as expressed in there. And I fully supported what's in there. I'm not sure of anyone that's indicated that they're not at this point, and I'm not sure if there's some feedback on it. I haven't heard anything negative about it. From what I do understand, and I might be incorrect, that there was some, if I understood, some expression that there wasn't enough diversity on the planning committee. But I think that, in my view, it's being on there, and I think there might have been some other African Americans on it. I know Reston Bell, and I don't recall the others, but most of the people on there, which I was surprised when I first heard about Reston. And when I first moved to the area, I wasn't going to go to Virginia because it's my understanding was Virginia was the South and Maryland was the North. And I hate to express my ignorance, but at the time I didn't know that there were slaves in Maryland. I mean, I moved from New Orleans to part of the Great Migration to LA in my understanding of the South and the North. But in June of, I don't want to take up a lot of time, but in June, I think of 77, we dropped our son off at the airport, was coming back, got off and couldn't get back on, and we're driving and we looked to the right, there was this beautiful area. We started driving through it. We ran into a couple, Kathy Hudgens and Willie Hudgens, and it turned out that Kathy and my wife were AKAs, and Willie and I had some things in common. They told us about Bob Simon and Ruston and his aspirations, and that was June. In August, we moved to the house of where we are now. And what I'm trying to say is that Bob Simon and the people that I know in Ruston aspire to housing, subsidized housing, whatever, throughout. It was an open area. I think at that time, most of Virginia wasn't, and Bob Simon lost it because, without going into a lot, but the people that were on this board, whatever ethnicity they were, the majority were Rustonians that believed in what Bob Simon believed in, equity for all. And so I thought it was very well represented by people who have a common philosophy. And I know that was my experience as being a part of it. I don't know much more to add, but I thought that everyone really aspired to express what we would call the Ruston point of view.
Thank you very much, Alvarez. Appreciate that. Yep. So again, open up any questions or comments. If you can, just you can use the reactions to raise your hand, so we can see if anybody has a question, comment.
You've got a question in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 1 second.
Where's the chat? I'm trying to.
The language access for the Planning Commission workshop. Okay, so there's a question about language access services for the Planning Commission workshop and PC. That's something I will have to look into. I don't know offhand. So I will have to check in with the clerk's office for the to find out those details. Okay, I see. 1 second. Yes,
the people that are joining us now, I see a lot of initials. I only see 4 pictures. I don't know who's on or who isn't on. Is that all the abbreviations of those of people that are attending right now?
So yes, those are people that are attending. If people have the cameras off, you're just going to see their initials.
Okay.
I'm trying to see. Okay, I see. And
Say St. Clair. St. Clair.
Yes,
John
Commissioner Carter. Yes.
What were you asking about Thursday? I kind of missed that, and I
So somebody was
responded, but
asking
I'll
if there, yes, if there would be language access services at the workshop and also for the Planning Commission hearing.
Yeah, I don't know about the language, but it is in person and virtual. So it's recorded Thursday, so you will have access. I'm not sure about the language issue, but it will be recorded. You can attend, or you can see it virtually, and it also be available if you can't go at all. Later on, it will be available for people to see.
If I remember,
One thing,
John, you were part of the team, weren't you, on the committee?
I was a planning commissioner, so I wasn't officially on the team, but I was a resource to it. Yes.
Oh, okay. I know. I remember you being a part of it. A lot of the
Yes,
discussion.
I went to a lot of the work sessions. One other thing that this section is intended, and excuse me for barging in a little bit, St. Clair, but the task force and the staff are aware of where the Board of Supervisors wants to go, and they're aware of the previous policies that created. This is in sync with those policies, and its attempt is to not so much create new ones, but to implement that policy in Reston. That's what's very important. And I think, as you said earlier, I think people are definitely in sync with this notion. You might quibble about how it's written and those kinds of things, but there's no question about the intent. So I hope those two comments are helpful.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Carter. I see there were a couple hands up, and I see, and forgive me on the pronunciation. Is it Hapa? I see somebody has had their hand up. Do you have a question or comment? If you can unmute and ask your question.
I cannot unmute.
Oh, we can hear you now.
Oh, there we go.
Yep.
Perfect. Hi, so my name is Hapa Sihingalo. I'm a program coordinator and advocate here at Cameron Crescent Apartments in North Reston. One of my residents had a question.
Okay.
I kind of walked in a little late, but I kind of feel like I walked in at an appropriate time when
Mr. Alvarez, I believe. Is
the young older man in the back row was speaking about Robert Simon.
Yes.
Because I literally had a dream about that man. I've never met him one day in my life. And he spoke to me in his dream and said, what was going on, because I was attending some of the last meetings, so it was just on my mind. And like I said, he came to me literally in a dream, and I never met the man, but I always feel his spirit across the street when I walk my dog by that statue that they made of him. And he commented something about an arts project that he was trying to set up for the kids at somewhere. I don't know if you guys did it already or whatever. And I kind of like had a conversation with him about the development that was going on here, how he felt about that. And he kind of said that it was in, like it was in some plans when he was alive. Is that true? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. He commented on that, but he said to be a voice for him and actually know how he felt about his arts. Something is so not so clear, but he mentioned something about arts for the children that was very important to him.
Well, thank you very much for that. But yeah, Robert Simon, I mean, he was the master planner for Reston. I mean, yes, a lot of what you're seeing now is from, Bob Simon had all that in his plans from back then. So yeah, it's really amazing to see what has happened there in Reston. I see, Carl, I see your hand up, but before I get to you, Karen Chamberlain, you had your hand up. Can you unmute and ask your question?
Can you hear me?
Can hear you now, yes.
Oh, hi. I can wait. Carla had her hand up.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yes. Carla.
Yeah, I was just gonna, there was a question about the language access for the Planning Commission workshop.
Yes.
And if there's a specific request, if staff can follow up with whoever asked that question to connect with clerk services to make language access available. Now, just to be clear, that meeting is not a meeting for community discussion. It'll be a meeting of discussion with the within the Planning Commission. I just want to clarify that with St. Clair.
So it is open to the public to attend. And there is a community roundtable session. So yes, if folks have questions, they will have the opportunity to ask questions.
So yeah, so language access would be important. So
Okay.
If folks on this call are aware of language access needs, we'd need to know in advance to get those services made available for that meeting. But I just wanted to follow up and make sure that we could do that specific follow-up work around that question.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, yes, Karen.
Thank you, St. Clair. Hi, I just want to say thank you for having this meeting today, and thank you for that presentation. It was very informative and kind of summarized everything that brought us here today. And I thought it was a really great effort on behalf of the task force to bring equity front and center as part of the comprehensive plan. And it was very forward thinking for Reston to start this conversation here in Fairfax, not only in the spirit of Reston, but also in the One Fairfax policy, and how can we move towards to making that a more protective and so how can I put it, enforceable, for lack of a better term, initiative here in Fairfax County. And so that was one of the things that I thought about the equity chapter here in this comprehensive plan. I think the planning principles are spot on. It highlights all of the key things in which it has direct impact in the socio and economic advancement and positioning of all Restonians in Fairfax County indirectly. Whether it's transportation, community health, all of these things impact quality of life. There were a couple things that I just wanted to highlight, and I'm not really sure how staff would want to move forward with it, but developing these equity initiatives should be, I feel as if it should be more of a two-way street, right? Like we have everything written here in the equity chapter, but it's not anchored with all of the other important elements. It's kind of like this disembodied chapter. It's not enforceable. It's not quantifiable. It's wonderfully written. It's where One Fairfax policy wants to go. It's where Bob Simon, it's where we want to go with Fairfax and Reston as a whole, but it's not really anchored with anything that we can come back and say, this is how things are going to be enforced. And then the second thing, and so I would say, and moving towards equity, we want to make sure that our actions are based on data. And there's nothing in here that really describes, this is Reston, this is its existing conditions, these are the people of Reston's, and these are the things that we need to correct. And these are the things we can introduce as we move forward. So those are some of the things. And then the final thing is, I just need clarification, and I can't get past this, is the first bullet. And I really, once you touched on this in your presentation, when you said the first principle talked about public participation. The way that the bullet is written right now, it kind of combines public participation and planning principles together. So I don't know if that first bullet was supposed to introduce all of the subsequent bullets as its planning principle, with its first principle being public participation. But right now it's not clear. And so I'm not really sure what the planning principles are. Is it the planning principles in the beginning of the Reston Comp Plan? Is it the Fairfax one, or is it the subsequent bullets? And then that's it. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Karen. Appreciate that feedback. So I know, and other staff members can speak on this too, but like you said, one of the big things in working through this was, like you said, needing to have data to help understand what are the needs, and it's like, what needs to be addressed that can help you develop a plan. So that was one of the challenges. And I think that's why, again, we look at, as working with equity, it's a way of introducing equity into the plan. But it's more of, there would need to be further work that would need to be done, like you said, utilizing data to truly understanding what are the Reston needs and priorities. So that I think that is something, that has been discussed, that, again, I think would help staff further in developing the standards for equity. And then you talked about the bullet about the principles, and it is like you said, it is a combining. It is going back to, again, the planning principles that are in the beginning of the Reston Comprehensive Plan. And one of the things they do talk about is public participation. So that was tying back to that, and just kind of highlighting the importance of public participation in the process. So I think that's something we can take a look at, clarifying or where that should be located, to help, help people better understand. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for that feedback.
And that would be with all of the different bullets, because I think, even when we're talking about transportation, as we know, and I know for a fact, transportation is such a data-driven effort that we really need to have this piece tie into something that is relevant and existing within Reston.
Yep.
So we know exactly what we're talking about. So
thank you so much. Thank you so much for your feedback. Truly appreciate that. And again, forgive me for the pronunciation. Is it Morcel? Do you have a question or comment?
Yes. I just had a comment and a concern I wanted to relay from the community as well. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marcel Osman. I'm a resident here at Stonegate Village Apartments in Reston, next to Kathy Hudgens Community Center. I attended the meeting with Fairfax County last week, I believe it was, with the community in order to protect public housing or affordable housing options.
Yep.
I just wanted to relay, as I know many of you guys are directly working with and might be able to do something in that effort. Many of the residents here who are also immigrants, who are a huge part of the community here, are very concerned about the ability to protect affordable housing as all the new developments are happening and everything, the prices are raising accordingly. Of course, there is a huge community that still doesn't have enough income to be able to afford those new high rises or the new apartment buildings or townhouses. So a huge concern from that I saw that I want to relay on their behalf is that how are you able to actually protect the housings? There's few options right now that were affordable, more affordable than the new high rises that say that they have ADU units and they're affordable, which are actually not affordable because you have to, like, for example, 4 people household has to have 85,000 income, which is it's not affordable because how are you going to be able to provide and put food on the table while not making that much money, which that was a concern that I saw from the meeting, and I just want to relay that as well, to just have that in back of your minds while you're making the decisions for making things actually affordable, because not everyone in Reston is well off, and there's economic issues there as well. So I just wanted to relay that. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you so much for that feedback, Marcel. Just to point out everybody, just so everybody's aware, yes, there are multiple processes going on in Reston at this time. So again, as part of this Reston Comprehensive Plan, yes, affordable housing is one of the topics. It's looking at, getting more new affordable housing with development. So some of the workforce housing, as Marcel just mentioned, but also preserving, existing both, market rates and affordable dwelling units. There's also a process going on looking at the preservation of affordable housing. It's a separate process. It's also going and taking a look at ways of preserving affordable housing in Reston. So that's something I can say staff on different levels. I know Supervisor Alcorn, this is a major concern. So that is something that's definitely being looked at. I was say, Supervisor Alcorn, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate that comment just now. Actually, all the comments have been fantastic. And St. Clair, perhaps that's something, I know there's language that the task force looked at for preserving market rate affordable housing, but there might need to be some additional language about preserving and enhancing existing dedicated affordable housing as well. I think certainly that's been in my mind that of course we're going to continue to do that, but that might be worth taking a look at that as well, specific to Reston. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Alcorn. Any other questions, comments? Not seeing any hands at this point. Yes, Karen.
Sorry, I just have one question. You did go over this the timeline for everything. And I think this community conversation is great. And is this going to continue? Is there going to be an opportunity for some kind of feedback to be brought back to Reston, particularly with these key issues that have been brought up here today?
So a couple of things, and let me see. I'll try to put it back up, but there is a Reston Study website where, again, anybody can provide comments, and staff is looking at those comments and looking to, if there's anything to address in our staff report, we would. I think at this point, like I said, there's a planning commission workshop next week. That's an opportunity to provide feedback and comments. Probably the next step, again, staff is working on finalizing a staff report that will go out and give staff recommendations. And again, the committee would even have an opportunity to, once they see that's usually published at least 5 weeks ahead of the public hearing, would have opportunities to review that, provide comment. And then again, at the public hearings, again, there's going to be, right now it's scheduled for a planning commission public hearing March 30th. Again, the public is, that is open to the public. You can provide comments, feedback there as well, and as well as with the Board of Supervisors public hearing. So there will be opportunities for feedback at those points.
Yeah, in St. Clair, let me jump in.
Yes.
Karen, also, if you or anyone else on this call would find it useful to have a follow-up call among this group or maybe a slightly expanded group after reflection, be happy. My office would be happy to help organize that too. So
yeah, and just to add, yes, staff throughout this process, we're available if there's meetings that need to be set up. Yes, we will make ourselves available.
You're muted, Sinclair.
You're muted, Sinclair.
Thank you so much. I was just asking if there were any additional, let me see, Terrence, do you have a question or comment?
More so a comment when it comes to access. I don't know if you guys are very familiar with it. I'm first and foremost, I'm Terrence Strom, I'm the director of the Community Connected Sites in Reston. We're seeing that a lot of residents that when we try to do virtual remote, Microsoft Teams is very, very difficult to share that link. I've probably gotten about 8 or 10 residents right now that's trying to access this meeting, but they're having difficulty with Microsoft Teams. So I think even with the language, it'd probably be good to, I know Zoom has always worked with us a little easier for us to share. It do have some, I know a lot of the security issues was early on in the pandemic, but it makes it a lot more easier for residents to be able to give their feedback. And another comment, I think somebody might spit, a lot of residents are asking me, is it a follow-up way where they can't give feedback because they wasn't able to access this meeting?
Yeah, and let me see, Sarah Godfrey, could you put up the link in the chat to the public input where folks can, so we do have a site where people can provide comments that staff will review, so that's an opportunity. Yeah, I appreciate the feedback. As you know, we're now in this virtual world, and it seems like with every platform, there are certain challenges. So that's all the challenge of finding what works best for folks. I can say I know throughout this process, at least with the Hunter Mill staff, we've been very good about posting meetings online. So again, if folks don't get an opportunity to attend meetings, they can still observe the meetings and still get feedback as well. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. I know, yes, we've had situations where people have issues accessing the Teams meetings. But again, it's just, one of the challenges in doing these community meetings is finding what platform works best for everyone. But that's what we'll continue to look at.
No problem. Anytime we can do it a little early, if we get advance notice when we sit, I think some of my staff right now are streaming it live from our centers. So that kind of helps us to decrease the barriers too as well. So
Okay, so you said advance notice, and did you say?
Yeah, I mean, a
is
little
there
bit,
better-
I know it's kind of got postponed and things of that nature,
Yep,
but you
yep.
know, if it's advanced notice, we might can do some things, we can eliminate the barriers. Cause I know that
Okay.
Microsoft Teams really works well for the county, so.
Yeah.
I know sometimes it's not a workaround, but we can
Okay.
kind of do some things.
Okay, thank you very much.
Terrence, it's Supervisor Alcorn. Thank you so much. Appreciate those comments. And yeah, let's, I'll ask somebody in my office to coordinate with you on a follow-on meeting. And we'll try to give enough advance notice because we do have several weeks here while the Planning Commission is doing its thing to get continued input. So thank you, Terrence.
No problem. Thank you.
Sarah, so you had a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to flag. So I put the study webpage link and the public input comment page link in the chat. And on the study webpage at the bottom, there's a stay informed section. And you can also sign up for email updates. So when there's any updates, like when the staff report's released, when the public hearings are confirmed and scheduled, notices will go out for that. So I just wanted to flag that as well. And then I also put my email in the chat to field any language access questions. So just wanted to flag that in case people didn't see it.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Appreciate that. Okay. Okay, so okay, so I think Terrence, your hand is still up, but I think that's the old hand. Is that correct? Any other questions, comments? Okay, so I guess with that, thank you everybody for your time. I think like we said, if anybody has any questions, comments, please reach out. Again, either there's a public input site. If you want to email Sarah, she can coordinate with us. Again, if there's any need for additional meetings, yes, we can make ourselves available to that. Again, we want to be meeting with people. We want to provide information. We want to answer questions. So again, we will make ourselves available as needed. So again, thank you so much for your time, and wishing everybody a good afternoon and a great weekend. Thank you.